If you ever want to participate in a coffee championship, or if you're just interested in coffee brewing at a really high level, then this is going to be something of interest to you. In the last webinar with Nucleus Coffee Tools, we had two really interesting guests. One is June Siemen, the current German Brewers Cup champion, and the other one is Jerome Rosler from Nucleus Coffee Tools, who works together with a lot of competitors. Both of them are sharing a lot of insight, tips, tricks, but also experiences when it comes to championships, especially the Brewers Cup. So if this is of interest to you, then make sure you take notes, take a pen, and enjoy the session that we are now having.
Yeah, I mean, how did I get started with coffee? Pretty much like all of us behind the bar. And from there, I started working in small roasteries here in Berlin. So I'm based in Berlin, Germany, for those that don't know. And I'm working in coffee for more than a decade now, almost 13 years. And during that time, I've worked in several sections within our coffee industry. So I've worked behind the bar, I've worked in roasteries, I worked a lot on events, especially in our industry, promoting coffee machines or roasteries, products for all kinds of coffee-related brands. And I also worked for Green Coffee Trader in the quality section. And last year, I founded a company together with my sister. We're Jewel Coffee, and we offer classes for professionals and home baristas, and we also do coffee caterings for all kinds of events. Yeah, so pretty much everything related to coffee I did.
Interesting. I'm going to post a link, of course, from Jewel Coffee in the chat right in a minute. But maybe before that, Jerome can already also start and tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you're doing in coffee, because you have also a little bit of a coffee background.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. My name's Jerome. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I'll kind of say a little bit why for me with coffee, because I always like telling people. For me, I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and for me, I honestly hated coffee growing up. I would always smell it in my mom's kitchen as it was going, and I didn't have a good sense of appreciation for it. And through the years, I started to evolve a little bit more and use caffeine a lot for high school and then towards my university days to help me get through my studies. Slowly, I started working in some coffee bars in the US, and eventually I transitioned myself over to Melbourne. And I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of people, different roasters. Oh, I think there's some background noise. Different roasters, and currently now I work for Nucleus Coffee Tools, where we like to push a lot of innovations. We work a lot in supporting the Nucleus Link coffee roaster that we constantly are evolving through firmware and through so many different updates, and to strip back the stereotypes of how complicated coffee roasting can be. And for me, I just love supporting people in their growth of connecting a lot of roasts to be able to, for green, for importers, exporters, competitors, so that at the end of the day, we have a better coffee community than from when I actually started. So
that's fantastic.
A little bit about me.
Great. Yeah, and I think people can really then feel when they're working with you that you know a lot about competitions as well, and you really can have empathy with them. And now I think with that topic we can directly jump into the competition topic, because this is what we are about to talk about here. And June, maybe you can tell a little bit about your competition way, and then also what inspired you to start competing and do the Brewers Cup.
So I've been in the competition game also for quite some time. I've had my first championship in 2018, so a little more than 6 years now. And I started with latte art, because for me that is a really good competition to start. It gives you a good feeling for what it's like to be on stage. What you really need to have precise motions. You really have to control over your hands, even though you're super nervous. And it is really good practice to actually train speaking while you're doing something, because this is super important for most competitions. And I did that for a few years quite successfully, and got to know a lot of super lovely people from the German community. And it was a really great feeling to not just get to know the Berlin coffee people, they are like a community of their own, but with the championship getting to know like the whole German coffee community, and from then onward it just spread. So once you get the feeling to be on stage, and the little rush before and the relief after, it's a really great feeling. And so I've had it over the years to cup tasting now. I did cup tasting last year, and I always wanted to really compete in Brewers Cup. One, because I love filter coffee. To me, it's the most delightful coffee beverage. Espresso is always a little too intense for me on the tongue. There's so much going on. It's so concentrated, and it's a little difficult for me to perceive all of those beautiful flavors. And it's just one tiny sip. And I love having, like 200 ml that you can sip and really enjoy the coffee throughout all the temperature stages. So filter coffee on a personal level is super important to me. And I feel that the Brewers Cup is one of the most fairest kind of competitions. There are a lot of other competitions where, like in general, you can spend a fortune on competitions. Let's be real. It's not something cheap. And to me, the Brewers Cup it is fair because there's the compulsory round where it's really about the skills. All of the competitors will get the same coffee and make the best out of it. So it kind of erases I will go with the most expensive coffee, most expensive equipment, and most expensive team, crew, whatsoever. So yeah, it's about fairness also to me. And I always wanted to compete in Brewers Cup, but hesitated for a bit because I never really thought that I really have something extremely inspiring to say, or that I discovered something completely new in order to be worthy of that spot on stage. But then I had a nice conversation with my husband, and he said, you know what, until you find something super inspiring yourself to say, you can just use it as a platform to promote the super inspiring work of others. And so that's what I took from it. And then I got started, and I got to know a lot of lovely people, and I see competitions as a platform which not everyone has access to. And I'm so lucky that I have the chance to compete. I have the access, and I just want to use it as a platform to promote, the truly inspiring work of others. Yeah.
So when you're talking about others, then you're mainly talking about coffee producers?
I'm talking mainly about coffee producers, obviously, but there are so many other great people that are involved within the coffee chain. So there are so many things in a competition that need to stick together, and it's obviously the main part is the producer who's doing the coffee. But I also got in touch with Jerome, for example, who helped me with the roasting, which is an essential part. And I got to know the guys from Zebarist who are doing paper filters and exchanging with people who invent new drippers. So there's so many people involved that you can exchange with and maybe create new ideas, or just found something super interesting, get in touch with them, and then promote their great idea on stage.
And what does it actually take to be then really successful in a Brewers Cup? So is it about the technique, or the coffee you bring, or how you roasted it, prepare it, or the story? Or so what is it? What does it take if you want to then win a competition like you did?
So the Brewers Cup, like I said, it has not only the open service, what we call the time that we have on stage, the actual presentation that all of you got to see. It also has a second part, which is the compulsory service, where all of the competitors will get the same coffee and just bring equipment, have a 30 minutes to get to know the coffee, figure out the best way to brew it. So you really have to prepare yourself and experiment with a lot of different coffees to get a good understanding about coffee itself. So it's this is a really big part. You really need to experiment a lot with coffee. And on the other hand, I mean, to be successful, there's a score sheet. It's always important to read the rules. There are certain
For
rules
sure.
that we have to stick to. That is something that a lot of people often tend to skip or just do a quick read of the rules and then lose points at that are unnecessary to lose. And what I really appreciate is that over the last years, the score sheet changed a little. So we have one section that is about the coffee quality, like the cup itself. This is what the judges will score. Then how precise your description of the coffee is. So if I say you will find mango, and if they will find mango, they will give me the point. If I only say mango, but they will also find orange, then I will not get all the points. And if I didn't say anything at all, they will for sure give me no points for that one. And then there's a different section which is about the presentation. Was it inspiring? Was it a new topic? Was it technically well done? So if there's the head judge who is always around you looking how you brew, how precise you brew. Is each of the three brews completely the same? So you can get a lot of points for this one. And this is something that I really appreciate that it changed. The focus was for the last years a lot on the coffee itself, which is fair because ultimately the goal is to create the best coffee experience for your guests, for your judges. But to me, for a great coffee experience, it's not just about the cup itself, but more the question, how do we value coffee in general? And so I'm pretty happy that it in percentage isn't as much as it used to be. So for me, a good coffee is not just the sip that I have, but everything that is around us and that came to make it possible. Yeah, I hope that makes sense for you.
Yeah, sure. And then you also had a team. I think you didn't do it yourself, and one of this person in the team was Jerome. And maybe you can elaborate a bit here, both of you, how did this collaboration start and how did it work? So how did you work together?
Yeah, of course, June, I'll let you start and then I'll kind of finish it off if you like.
Yes, let's do it like this. So it basically started because I applied for the Link or the Nucleus sponsorship program. Everyone who thinks about competing should just give it a try and apply. And so I got the sponsorship, and part of it was the support for the Link. I already had one, and I already gained first experiences there. But of course, it's always great to have someone who's really into the roaster to assist or to support and give me the best help possible to find the best way in roasting the coffee. And funny enough, we haven't met in person yet, but we will in Jakarta. I'm very looking forward to this. Yeah, maybe you wanna take over now.
Yeah, what I think was so cool about June and I is that we've actually never met in person, but she was actually able to exchange the coffee with one of my colleagues over in Copenhagen of last year. Copenhagen, they had the World Roasting Competition, and we had the booth with you, Ingo. And she actually ended up passing it on to Jordan, who passed it on to someone else who was coming over to Australia. And then finally I got it. So I was actually able to understand her coffee, understand kind of her brewing method and her approach of what she was envisioning, what she was wanting to do with the coffee, and we kind of bounce ideas back and forth. But the kind of cool thing that extends further is I had to go over to Canada at that time. So I was literally dialing in the coffee with her, using kind of her concept, her pouring style and stuff. But I was dialing in Canada off a different voltage and then converting that voltage over to her. And we just kept going back and forth. And for me, she chose a coffee that was like more something that was more with her heart, more than anything that was going to do extremely well. I'll let her talk about a little bit more about that specific coffee that she chose, but I found it so unique because everyone goes for typically Colombia, Panama, Ethiopia when it comes to these competitions, because a lot of these other origins are always overlooked. They don't have the best quality and stuff. So for us, it was about really nailing the finer details with it. And I remember sharing some of these coffees, the Nicaraguan coffee that she actually ended up using, with a few judges in US that like judge at a high national level, and they were like so impressed. And I was like, yeah, this is a very, very unique coffee. But the way that we were able to execute it and go back and forth really emphasized the really cool notes that she really wanted to express with her brewing method, but as well highlight the producer origin and just tick all of those things that she was mentioning. The biggest thing is for brewers as well as having that team kind of around you to support you, to give you that confidence, because sometimes coffee can change on a day-to-day basis. One day it can taste like cherries and the next day it tastes like pineapple. So she had a really good team in the background as well, tasting the coffee with her, so she would be able to maximize her points as well.
And maybe for me as an outsider to understand it, because you said you were bouncing ideas forth and back, was it about, did you have different coffees and then you were discussing together which one to take, or was it one coffee and you were working on roasting profiles or brewing profiles? What was it that you did then?
Yeah, it was just one coffee that we were working on, and she really wanted to nail this coffee. June, I'll let you talk a little bit about the coffee as well in a sec, but basically she had like a really unique brew method where she really wanted to emphasize certain things out of the coffee that was like a booster type style. And it just worked lovely. Honestly, the coffee for me, when we were first roasting it, it had like a lot of kind of classic negative characteristics that you would see out of a coffee like this, but we ended up customizing certain aspects. And this was early days when we were playing a lot with fan adjust towards the end, because as coffee cracks, the oscillation starts to slow down a little bit. And I was able to like kind of teach her and go back and forth with how to actually increase fan adjust, which was a feature that we were kind of working on at that stage to be able to get the best representation of that variety. June, you want to jump in and talk more about like the coffee and what you found that was cool and interesting and correlate it over to your brewing as well?
Yeah, sure. First of all, just like you mentioned, you were so helpful to understand the link itself, and it was also so cool to have that feature of the fan adjust before it got actually released. And I remember our first call where you were like throwing numbers at me, like, and then you have to adjust this and then this, and then after that second when it's cracking like this, I was so overwhelmed. But over the time it's really easy to get a feeling for it. So there's a lot of numbers first, but once you're into it, the link is really easy to use. So the coffee that I used, you mentioned it, it was from Nicaragua. I have a pretty special bond to that country. It was the first origin I ever traveled to. After more than a decade in coffee, I finally made that dream come true. And I've always wanted to go to an origin trip, not just for the nice photos, but to actually like understand what's going on there, because we have that videos and we have books that we read in, and we tell people how hard the work is in origin in order to produce green coffee, but you really understand it only once you've actually done it. So I was lucky enough to be part of the coffee farm training of the Kaffeemacher. which own Finca Santa Rita in Nicaragua. And they are part, or that finca is led by Claudia Lobo and Tim Willems directly in Nicaragua, which also have their own farm, Finca El Arbol, which is the tree. And they also run the dry mill Brida Azul, where they process their own coffees, but also the coffees of other small producers within the region. And they are part of Project Origin. Maybe one or two of you have heard about that project. I think that's where the relationship to you, Jerome, is, and why you actually knew the kind of coffees before I even told you that I will go with this coffee. And so I've been there for a good week, working and learning with them. And yeah, Nicaragua is a country that you don't see very often on stages, which is a shame. It's yeah, a country that has its difficulties also politically. It's and it has that stereotype like coffees from Nicaragua, they need to be chocolatey and nutty and a little harsh, and that's all they can be. But they don't. And as it's part of Project Origin, they early on experimented a lot with processings that they adapted from the wine industry. So they, especially Tim, is like a mastermind when it comes to fermentation. He, yeah, he kind of cracked the code. You can give him the green coffee and tell him, hey, I'm looking for this and this kind of cup profile as a producer, and he will do the magic and bring that cup profile into your coffee. And yeah, the work at Brida Azul is truly special. They really care for the community in Nicaragua. They are located in the Dipiltur area, which is super close to Honduras and benefits from a special microclimate. So it's also a super interesting area if you're into varieties and microclimate and all of that. And yeah, Claudia is originally from Nicaragua. Tim is from Belgium and joined her a few years ago, I think 7 years or so. And together they just created something very meaningful that helps the people around there, that helps them not only to score higher in their cup profile and by that generate more income, but also to use their international network to help them actually find potential buyers for their green coffee, to allow them have access in this whole specialty game that many small producers don't have. They don't understand what's going on. They don't have the people to actually, yeah, help them get a foot in the door. And that's what they are doing there. They empower also female producers. This is a project that is currently going on that we are talking about. So Claudia is encouraging especially female producers from Nicaragua to come together and to start producing exceptional lots for competitions. And on my end, I will do my best to promote it for competitors to use that coffee so that we in the end can all benefit from it. Because, you know, Jerome, you mentioned it, usually on stage you will see Colombian or coffees from Panama, which are lovely. I get that. I enjoy them myself. But there's so much more. It's not just the two origins that we got. And I think all of the origins have something super, truly special to offer. And I hope that in the future, the score sheets or the evaluation is changing in the same direction that it just did, so that more competitors will find the courage or the chance to. It's not a chance. I mean, you decide what kind of coffee you're going with, but feel there is a higher chance to win with coffees that are not just from Colombia and Panama, so that more origins will be represented on stages.
Yes.
100%. Like, I feel like there's so many ways around like highlighting other origins within like Southeast Asia, within Africa, Central America, and South America. And there's so many variables in which you can use to help you, roasting being some of it, your brewing analogy, and how you actually want to work on it. The best thing is almost when you want to start on this project of doing like a Brewers Cup is always having someone where you can bounce kind of your crazy ideas off of, because sometimes they can help isolate you and so that you can get the best possible result that you want. Another thing is like water as well. Water can help articulate your coffee in a certain way that if your acids are too high or your mouthfeel is too low, as an example, you can use ways in which you can use magnesiums or calciums and other buffers in which you can really highlight this true coffee. So for me, her coffee was so amazing, and we were able to like have people not have this preconceived notion of Nicaraguan coffee that it has like chocolate tones, it has nuts and caramels, something that Tim and Claudia nailed, as she was saying, which had some beautiful red and yellow fruits that were really, really, really good. And she basically collaborated with her friend Janine to basically get the most out of this coffee. And as you can see, they've really executed it really well. And it's something that I honestly always want to see more of myself as well, because I always find people constantly using Colombia is like the biggest trend right now, using Colombian coffee, because they're really pushing the gap in terms of where processing can be. So you'll find that nationally always typically winning, but other origins like Ethiopia is almost like the birthplace of coffee, and that's like another origin that I really want to see happening. But even the competitions happen in Indonesia, and there's some amazing Indonesian coffees that I've come across in like the last like couple of years, being different species like Liberica to really cool like even wet milled coffees that have been wet hulled coffees that have been absolutely insane. So for me, it's always about pushing a new idea, a new story, and don't get discouraged necessarily that you have to use a Colombian or Panama. Go with where your heart is and have the other people around you really to help bring it up so that you can do quite well within the competition.
Nice. And when you had this beautiful coffee, then you decided to roast it with the link. And I think June has access to quite a lot of different roasting equipment. But you said you already had the link when you started. And maybe can you say why you decided then to use the link as a roaster for the competition?
Sure. So, like you mentioned, I had access to quite a few different roasting machines in my sample room. Okay. But the great thing for going for the link is that you can roast like super small portions, which for Brewers Cup you don't need a lot of coffee, which is great when you compare it for a barista. I mean, those roasting for barista, they really need to invest some time. But for brewers, you can do like 1 or 2 batches and you have the coffee for your time on stage. And if you are able to roast super small batches, of course, you can experiment more with a certain amount of coffee that you have. So I had, I think, 6 to 8 kilos, which is crazy lot for Brewers Cup, and gave me the chance to really experiment a lot with different waters, different brewing, different roast approaches, development times, on and on. So yeah, this was one main point for the link. And a big benefit is that you can really cup or brew the coffee right after roasting. So you can see which attributes the coffee has or that it shouldn't have, or something that is missing that you want to have, and therefore adapt pretty quickly and do it in the next roast. And then within like one long session, you can really get to a certain point where you're pretty happy with your coffee, or get to, you actually get to really know your coffee within a few hours pretty well. And then also for me, because I've been training in Hamburg and I live in Berlin, one big advantage is that it's portable. So you have that suitcase and you can just take it with you and set it up pretty easily. Yeah.
And then you said you had 6 to 8 kilos of your coffee. And before you were talking about that Jerome had some of your coffee you had some of your coffee. And did I understand it right? So then Jerome was in either Canada or Australia, you were here in Germany, and then you were roasting together, and then Jerome was you were then exchanging the taste note. That means that the coffees were kind of tasting the same in Canada or in Australia and in Germany, or how was this working?
Yeah, I think like the cool thing about it was is I had the template from June. She already started with quite a few profiles, and I had her at a really good starting point. And then from there, it was all about like the finite details. She would express to me that, oh, I want to see less chocolate. I want to see more fruit. Oh, this acid was a little bit too low, or we really wanted to extend a little bit of the aftertaste. And basically what we did was we just kept going back and forth. I think we sent at least 8 different profiles to really finite this coffee, and obviously teaching her the fan adjust features that we were using at the early stage to really make sure the development stage was really good, and then finding the right amount of development as well, because I was really particular with her to like get it on the money when it came to being exactly, I can't remember what we landed on, but it was like 50 to 54 seconds of development, which is after first crack, your development time ratio. But yeah, I thought it was like really cool because we were just exchanging data and information without actually being with each other, utilizing the same roaster and getting the exact same results back and forth until she was basically within that sweet spot of where she can then work with her team to really do the final touches to make the coffee truly pop.
So this is like really an advantage of the modern times that we can do a lot of things remotely. I am so thankful that Tim actually came for World of Coffee Copenhagen to Europe with the coffee, and therefore I was able to give some coffee and let it the guys bring to Jerome. So that was very helpful. And then also Janine, which I worked with for the Brewers Cup, she cupped before with Jerome when Martin was preparing for Chicago. So the two of them were kind of calibrated when it came to sensory, which is also a bit advantage. Like in the early stages, you really need to figure out, okay, how do you define the first crack, like 1 pop, 2 pops, or if it's like starting to pop consistently. And so this was the kind of back and forth that we had to get an understanding. Okay, how do you define this? How do you define that? And from this onward, it was just like, okay, yeah, to me it tastes like this and this, but this and this would be nice. And Jerome, like Tim is for fermentation, Jerome is like the magician for the roast profiles, because I'm not a roaster. I do a lot of things in coffee, and I have a good basic understanding of most things that are happening with coffee, but I'm not like a super roaster that is roasting each and every day. I'm doing sample roastings for quality reasons and for competitions, and therefore I'm very grateful that there is this chance for the sponsorship from Link to have the help from people that are really into roasting and then really know what's going on. And yeah, I tell Jerome, hey, this is a little more chocolatey. I want to have it more on the praline side. And he's like, yeah, okay, we do this and this and this, and here's the new profile. It's like magic. So yeah,
Nice.
It's always teamwork.
I remember the first time I met Jerome was in Athens, and then he was like day and night roasting samples for coffee producers and competitors. But maybe Jerome, how did you, because all of these coffees then that you are usually roasting are so exceptional in their own way, and how do you approach them? Because you usually get 100 gram or then a small amount of samples. Can you tell a little bit on that? So if you get a sample from a competitor or producer or whoever, how you approach it and on the link?
Of course, when it comes to a lot of it with the producers, it's been good over the last like couple of years because a lot of them now have more exposure with Link. But in like the early days when we were like first launching the product and everything, everybody was a little bit hesitant because they're like, oh, what's this little density tube thing? What are you guys actually trying to do? And for us, it gives a lot of data before you actually start roasting. For me, that's probably like the most important thing when it comes to coffee roasting is understanding where your density is, where your moisture is, process of your coffee, what variety it is, because there's so many different species and varieties out there, and it's really hard to articulate a coffee. So basically, with working with Sam, I can see someone who's here from like the early days, which is Wayne on the chat as well. But we basically created a bunch of different power curves that you're actually able to use to allow coffees to crack at certain areas. So for me, it was about just always articulating the coffees the way people like to describe it to you. Obviously, Sam, myself, you, Ingo as well, we're quite familiar with the link system, but we wanted to make it as easy as possible that so people, if they have like a cupping approach that they really want to do, that's lively, bright, acidic, not too much heavy on body, they're able to do that. They have a filter approach that has a little bit more catered towards like how June is brewing, but as well how people brew typically within cafes and bars, down to espresso. There's been so many people now that are using it within barista comps because they're finding such value and making these finite adjustments into it, even though that they have to roast 500, 600 grams of a particular coffee. We just recently had an Italian barista competitor that just came second over in Italy just recently, and he was using all link with 2 separate coffees, and it was really cool to see his strategy and going back and forth with him. So I think it's very endless, and we try to make the system as easy as possible so that no matter what way you like to brew, you'll be able to get like a result close to exactly what you want. And that's when it comes to like the competitions. And we have the link access program that we're pushing within Jakarta as well, where we'll be supporting multiple different competitors and really tailoring or helping support them with their roast profiles as well. Because to me, it's not about figuring out the best roast profile. It's about figuring out the roast profile that suits that competitor the best so that they can articulate the coffee, brew the coffee to the standard in which they're wanting to achieve.
I would love to talk about this a little bit more later, but maybe you can also share 1 or 2 insights on if there is now somebody who is not experienced in roasting as you are, and he has got the link or she has got the link and some coffee samples. What would you recommend this person to then kind of approach the best individual profile, doing the different like filter profiles that are there, or what would you recommend them?
Yeah, for a starting point for me is the most internationally recognized profile that I've had success with is using Cupping D. Cupping D is probably the best way that you can start to understand how your coffee truly expresses. You're going to like start to always look at your classic details, your acids, your body. When I say body, I'm talking about like the thickness / viscosity of it and how the weight actually sits on your palate. And then look at sweetness as well. Start to figure out what nuances that particular coffee is expressing, whether they're high or low. Utilizing that, I suggest brewing it, I suggest cupping it, get to know that coffee really well, and then start to figure out what things that you would actually want to extend from there. Once I'm looking at it, for example, I'd be looking at using a filter set within it. Within the filter sets, we have over 5 different styles and approaches with it, some with longer Maillard, basically, longer sweetness kind of style and approach. So it's about really trying to figure out what the best is. I've almost used every single profile with competitors all across the world, but my best starting point is using Cupping D and then starting with something of a filter pack of some sort. They're using Filter C. That's a very good classic example. The Filter C pack is something very similar to what I did for Martin. Martin won the World Brewers Cup Championship last year in Chicago. And basically I used the backbones of Filter C just to have like an earlier crack, because within his coffee I really want to push like a lot of sweetness, mouthfeel, acidity to really make his coffee shine. His coffee was a very fresh coffee, like you're talking when I'm saying fresh. His coffee was sent from the Franz and team over in Panama, literally like 6-8 weeks off the drying bed. So this coffee was super hard to understand the cracking point and everything of where the coffee was going to be, because it was going to be so inconsistent. But with going back and forth with them, we're able to use the backbones of something that was already existing in Filter C and be able to create a whole new profile set. And what's cool is that profile set is available for everybody as well. So if you do have access to a link, there is a profile set called Martin World Brewers Cup Championship, and it works so well if you're wanting to use any kind of flatbed brewing and stuff. I literally just had a competitor in the US who just made finals and everything, and he scored the top opens and just using the backbones of Martin's pack and without even talking to me or anything. And I was quite amazed of what he was actually able to achieve, and just about understanding the coffee and then having the team around you, as I was saying before, to really make those finite details.
Nice. So we're already talking about the Worlds, and Jakarta is coming closer. And can you already share a little bit, I mean, June and Jerome, because I think you're already then in preparation for the Worlds, what you're going to do there or what coffee you're going to work on. Is there anything you can already share on the collaboration you have or the preparation you have for those?
I mean, I won't go too much into details. Yeah, we just started finding the right profile for my coffee that I got a few days ago, actually. So even though the nationals were in September, there is quite a long time between the nationals and the Worlds, but there was not so much roasting to be done until now, because it was a tough time. Like all of the previous crops were already sold out, and all of the new coffees are currently being done, ready. And so last week I got my coffee, and now everything is going as for every competition, finding the right roast profile, exchanging, going back and forth with Jerome on this one. I already have the brewing device that I'm going to use. I have my concept, and this is something super important to know in advance. Like when you have your coffee and you cupped it and you know what this coffee can taste like, that you pretty soon select the device that you will use on stage, because there is a massive difference between going with a conical or a flatbed dripper. And so this is one good detail for Jerome to know, so that he can help me find the right the right profile for this coffee and this approach and this brewing method, and to get the most delightful version out of this coffee, to have transparent flavors and a pleasant coffee experience for my judges, for my guests. It will be again a coffee from a producer that I know, because this is something that is important to me. We've talked about that already, but I am, in my opinion, it's not just about going with fancy fincas and big names, but when you think about that, where did it start for those fincas to be known worldwide? Well, it's for competitors that chose to use their coffee, go on stage with them, and then succeeded, and by that those fincas gained popularity. And so I hope that this might be the case for the producer that I'm working with for the Worlds. Yeah. Yes. But it's
For
not from
sure.
Colombia and it's not from Panama.
That's her little hint for you guys. But for like a lot of the competitors that I'm talking with and helping with at the moment, a lot of them are just hunting. It's like hunting for the gem at the moment. Everybody's going to Panama, to Colombia, to different countries within Central America, some going to Kenya, and some of which actually I've come across that are actually looking at using some Asian coffees as well, that are trying to tie it in, especially with the competition happening in Southeast Asia. It's like a kind of cool concept that others are wanting to do. But for me, like, the coolest thing is that all of them are all coming from all over the place, all around the world. So you have all these beautiful national competitors who've done so well, will have such amazing coffees. And for us, from a Nucleus side, we just really want to allow them to bring their vision to life, because some of them, it's going to be their first time going to Worlds, and they have no idea what they're in for. There's humidity, there's different temperature. Going to Indonesia is going to be a little bit harder to roast to where they're normally. over at. And some people even try to bring their coffee over roasted, but sometimes you might get stuck in customs. There's so many issues that will happen within a world competition. So for us, with the help of my team as well, we're able to create this access program. And we have our distributor over in Indonesia who's given us this space, basically, that's allowing people to be able to roast their coffee, utilize all different type of brewers if they don't have their brewers that land. Like there's a classic example where I was helping these guys from Lithuania and they completely lost 3 of their suitcases, and we were able to like really come together and try and create something that was like truly magical for them. And they used the power of the whole community to be able to have all the equipment, the cups, the brewers, to be able to actually still perform and still keep their headspace together, because all their whole original concept had to be like thrown out the window. So for me, it's just about supporting people and bringing the best out of everybody, because at the end of the day, everyone's going to have amazing coffees, and it's just about how can we highlight each person to really make their story shine, their concept shine, but as well their coffee shine at the end of the day.
Nice. You have been talking about that some people will prepare the coffee before, others will roast it then there. And I want to pick up 2 questions that I have in the chat. They're for June, but also maybe you can give some feedback here, so both of you. And the question is first, because June said that you can already then find some findings of the coffee when you directly take it out of the link. And the question here was, so can you elaborate here a little bit more? So what can you get out of it? Because then you also have to kind of interpret what is the best potential of a coffee, how long shall it rest? So how do you find out then, how to rest the coffee best for a competition, when is the best time, and how much can you find out then when you're roasting it directly off from the roaster?
So regarding how long it will be best for it to rest, this is nothing that I get directly after the roasting. This is more about what kind of variety it is and mostly what kind of processing it is. So I find large differences between different process types, how long they need to rest after roasting. So this is something that is a little different from what I get from the coffee directly after roasting. Directly after the roast, you can find certain attributes like we mentioned earlier, okay, this coffee has a lot of chocolatey notes. I don't want the chocolatey notes. I need to find a different approach that will highlight more of the berry notes that I know this coffee has, or that it could be a little lighter. The aroma is not as perfumey, jasmine-like as it could be, but it's not about how long I need to rest the coffee. And so I actually spend a lot of coffee for the nationals, because I had this idea that I need to check like all of those kind of coffee profiles and roast like 1 or 2 batches and then have them each rest for a certain amount of days in order to find the perfect spot after roasting. And I think for the words, I won't do that again. So my idea now is to really focus on finding the best profile, and then do a few batches and experiment on how many days are the perfect time after the roast. Surely it will be a little different for the worlds now, because I will try my best to get to know the coffee as best as possible here in Germany. But like Jerome mentioned, the conditions in Jakarta will be completely different. I'm super thankful that you already roasted in Jakarta and know how to probably adapt to the high humidity, the temperatures and everything. So I would recommend just brewing directly after roast and focusing on finding the right roast profile. And then in the second step, once you found your profile, you can roast like 2 to 3 batches, and then put for each, let's say, usually it's like day 4, day 6, between day 4 and day 6. And then if it's like a highly processed coffee, it can take a little longer, and then you just have it portion wise and let it rest for a certain amount of time, and keep track on it through some notes. Like, this is something I would always recommend. Be as scientific as possible, be as precise as possible. Write everything down, and do spreadsheets or have a notebook, and then write everything that you find, because there will be a point where, this and this log, it was so tasty. And then you have to find your notes. Oh no, I didn't do any notes. I just remember that it was so yum. So for everything that you do, take some notes. So after a few weeks, you can come back to that point. Yeah, so this is what I would recommend.
Oh, thanks a lot. And how long actually did you let the coffee that you had at the German Brewers Cup, how long did you let it rest? And what was actually the processing? I'm not sure if you shared it.
So the coffee was a geisha from Finca Libre, and it was a carbonic maceration natural. So also the processing had the purpose on getting the most pleasant version out of the green coffee as possible, like to have not as many chocolatey notes in the green coffee itself. And then the roasting style was like the final step to really create a pleasant experience. So it was in barrels for 96 hours in a whole cherry, and then it got dried as a natural on raised African beds. And I roasted it 6 days prior to the competition. I think I have to check my notes, but I think it was 6 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One question actually that came up to my mind, because both of you were working you're doing competition, but you're also working in gastronomy. And when it comes to roasting, is there a difference in roasting for competitions and roasting for like normal roasting, or roasting for example, gastronomy or standard customers?
For sure. I feel like within like a cafe environment or within a restaurant environment, you almost want to tailor that roast specifically to make it the easiest possible to be able to brew. That's why a lot of people on like retail shelf will have a specific roast strategy or roast plan that they specifically use for wash coffees, natural anaerobics, and like honey style coffees. And I think it's really good to make something as simple and easy as possible, so then you don't have customers come to you and be like, oh, I'm struggling to brew this coffee. Like a good classic example is Anna here in Australia. We really like to roast a lot of our washed anaerobic coffees a little bit on the lighter side, because we really like to preserve a lot of the floral aromatics and stuff. So immediately off grind, you're able to really be able to brew the coffee straight away, but as well see it last for such a long period of time, versus trying to get the exact best representation of that coffee for one brew method. For competitions, you're really just trying to nail it just in that day. Probably some of the coffees will not taste good like a couple days later or a couple days earlier. So it's just about having the coffee peak at that certain time with the brewing method and with the brewing water. So competition coffee is like kind of make you open up your headspace a little bit more to be able to like figure out how you want to best roast that kind of style of coffee. And you're really almost roasting to a score sheet. You're not necessarily roasting for the best consumer experience. You're roasting so that you have the right amount of intensities, the right amount of flavor development that you're actually able to achieve. So it's crystal clear that no matter who is drinking has like the same exact experience.
What I want to add, I think also one major thing is that roasteries will always roast for the water that they have in their roastery, because this is the water that they use for cupping, and so this is what they know the coffee best with. Whilst on competition, you tailor everything. You tailor the roast, you tailor everything to the brewing, and you also tailor the water. So this is also because we had a competition for roasters from Mercanta, where they all got the same green coffee and they needed to roast it the best way. And then there was a cupping where all of them cupped together and scored the coffees without knowing who roasted what. And a few of the roasteries didn't score that high during the competition because it was in a different country that where they roast. And when they came back and just compared from the roasteries within the cities, they scored even higher because, of course, everyone is adapting the roast profile to the waters that they have within their roastery. Yeah.
No, okay. That's an important topic. And then, I mean, how you're doing that then for competitions? Are you then also then preparing a particular water that you're then taking for a competition? Because, since it's that relevant.
Yeah, so this is one of the big pros that we had because, of course, we wanted Jerome and me to have the same experience with the coffee, and water is one of the major parts of a brewed coffee. And it is very common for competitions that people start with completely demineralized water as a base and then add certain minerals to achieve a certain sweetness, use it as buffers, highlight certain acidities or not. And there are Apex drops, for example, that you can use, and therefore we can not only share brewing recipes but also water recipes so that we have the same base for our coffee so that we can actually talk about the roast because the water will be pretty much the same. And then we can adapt the water also. So it's a back and forth, not only for the roasting, but also between roast and water. Yes.
Yeah. Another question, and this is then more a roasting question that I see in the chat. And he's asking then more in general, because we've been talking about the link and how to use the link. He has now, for example, a Robot or like a drum roaster. And can you maybe share, I don't know, maybe this is something more for Jerome, or how to generally approach a roasting profile then for competitions?
Yeah, of course. When it comes to barista, it's like a whole nother ball game in itself as well, because you have like multiple courses that you're serving. You're not just serving one beverage as a whole. You're serving espresso, milk, and obviously you're doing some sort of signature beverage. For me, when I'm approaching barista competition, it's first about understanding that coffee really well. Whenever we're doing barista comps, even early days, it's all about sampling that coffee as much as possible, getting to know it. What is the sweet spot of that coffee? What do you need to hide out of this coffee? What do we want to highlight out of this coffee? Then from there, you use a lot of like your roast approach then to figure out what kind of style or recipe you're wanting to do. Right now for barista, it's very common to work with like a longer ratio right now. When I say longer ratio, I'm talking in like 20 grams in your portafilter, and you're extracting close to like 50 grams out. In comparison, if we rewind like 10 years ago, you're talking people were on a 1-to-2 ratio, meaning 20 grams in and 40 grams out. The kind of style that a lot of people push for is this longer style, but allows you to have a little bit more of your buffer. So that if you're off by 2 grams or so, the coffee is still quite similar to what it was before, versus older school, which was 1-to-2 kind of approach. But if I'm doing that, then I'm trying to tailor the best roast expression to highlight those specific attributes, which can be quite hard because you're going to have some washed coffees that might do really well with the extended Maillard and like a shorter development versus a natural coffee that we were just talking about before that might need to have a lot longer development, less Maillard, because you want to hide these chocolatey tones and all this. But then when it comes to milk-based approach, for me, I really honestly, this is like kind of a newer style, a new approach that a lot of people are taking, is using something that's quite light cupping style and aromatic. That's the reason why I say that, is because you can have the milk or whatever kind of alternative milk that you're using, utilize that to be able to give it more weight and stuff, because whenever you're roasting off a cupping profile, you're actually able to get so much intensities out of the coffee. You're able to see the coffee for what it is, and then you can use the milk to kind of round it out. So for me, like no matter what roaster I am using for like a specific competition, I'd be really wanting to understand the coffee first and foremost, and then understand my threshold. How far can I push this coffee? How light can I push this coffee? And kind of try and find that finite within it. I think that's kind of the beauty with a link system as well, because you can almost tailor that experience to your coffee style, no matter what the competition or whatever you want. That way you're able to explore so many different representations or expressions out of that coffee to really highlight what you're wanting to do. So if you're preparing for a barista competition and you have like 500 grams that you're wanting to allocate towards getting to know this coffee, you can do close to 10 different representations of that coffee using the link and really find the sweet spot, so that if you do want to translate it onto a bigger roaster, you kind of have your blueprint already set as well.
Thanks a lot for that. I have another question that is then related to the resting time that we've been talking about before, and in particular because we said then for the link, and also June said that she could then really drink the coffee out of the machine. Is this something that's typical for fluid bed roaster or convection based roasters, or is this something that's typical for the link? So how do you see it with other roasting machines that you've probably been working with, or is it also related to the profile, so that you can have different degas time depending on the profile, or is it really then more like June was referring to the processing as well?
So what I think which is really cool with the link, which is something that we really wanted to push for, was it breaks the norm in traditional roasting, and you start at ambient temperature. So I always like to think of it like you're cooking a steak, where you're cooking it from like kind of like the inside out as you're actually going. When you put it into the oven, you're actually cooking the internal bit, and then you go onto the pan to like finish it at the end. By starting at ambient temperature, you're almost like sous vide kind of the coffee instead of having it as a preheat, because most roasters, you have to always preheat to whatever the temperature is. It can be anywhere from 150 degrees Celsius all the way up to like 280 degrees Celsius, and then it drops back down in order to gain momentum. So within the link, because of this, less CO2 is actually built up within the inside of the coffee, meaning you can make your adjustments directly off of the roast. Classic example was when I was with Janine and Martin. We made all of our judgments based on that day with the coffee, because we didn't have much time to work with the coffee. That coffee was super fresh. None of us had tasted it. And it was just about kind of refining and seeing where the coffee can go, and then making like final adjustments from there. So I think that's the cool thing about roasting, is understanding resting times and stuff. Obviously, if you're looking at like a gas roaster in comparison, sometimes they can take up to like 6 weeks before the coffee is truly shining because of the roast approach or how you're actually flushing the coffee bag. Sometimes you can use nitrogen flushing when you're actually sealing the bags, meaning that your coffee will last such a long time. But no matter what roaster you're using, it's just about getting to know that, finding it. When you are cupping a coffee or tasting it, you'll immediately taste like kind of like this gassiness, and you'll have like kind of characteristics that might feel muddled and stuff. And that's where the aging really takes over, and you'll start to find coffee get better day after day from there. And like June was saying before, we're finding a lot of our brewers competitors that are competing, like some of them are crazy and they'll use it 24 hours off roast, but we've seen success in a world basis as well. Carlos, who won Worlds back in Greece, and he was using coffee roasted 21 days off like the link as well at that time. That was when we were really pushing like that whole idea. So I think it's really cool that you can be able to do that. But even as an example, you can take like 100 grams basically of that particular coffee, and you can put it into like tubes or into like different bags. Then you can start to see how it is aging over time to get to know your coffee a little bit better. And that's something that I would do even on a normal basis when I take coffee off a retail shelf. No matter where you go around the world, people have different roast approaches and etc. So you can definitely break that bag down and start to understand that roaster a little bit better. And then you'll probably be much happier with that true expression of that coffee.
Oh, thanks a lot. By the way, June and Jerome, because we actually already have reached the time, do you have like some more minutes that we can cover some more questions, or would you have to run away?
Of course. I know we've been probably rambling a little bit long.
Thanks a lot. Now, because then I see, because there were some more questions in the chat also, and one is then particularly on the first crack, and I think that's something quite relevant because marking the first crack on the link is quite critical. What is your recommendation here? When to mark first crack, at which point?
For me, I always like to talk about it as like the popcorn moment. So whenever you're putting like popcorn into like the microwave, for example, you're always going to hear like a pop, pop, pop. But I always like it to be like this rolling crack so that you're actually able to hear 2, 3 cracks simultaneously, and it is quite loud and audible. And that's where I would mark first crack. That way, it's like a accurate measurement of the entire batch versus that could be a defect that cracked earlier or whatever the case is. So it's all about having that rolling popcorn type effect that I always like to call it.
Yeah, good. And what is the suggested batch size for competitions? Does it matter, or can you then just take any amount that you have and then dial in the weight?
Yeah, to be honest, you can use any other like batch size when it comes to like the link. I've worked with 50 grams with some crazy species, like with Uginoides, we've done like 50-gram batch sizes and done amazing. My sweet spot is always 70 to like 90 that I really like to work with. It just allows me to, especially if I'm communicating with someone across the world, like I was with June, I'm able to see like the stability between each and every roast so that I can see how the coffee is acting, if it needs to crack earlier, if it needs to crack later, and how it's triggering after first crack. So I think that would be like my best starting point, is starting with something 70 to 90. But as well, like if you're doing something for espresso, try and do like a bigger batch size, like 100 grams, so that you're able to like have 3 or 4 shots out of it, so you can make better adjustments or changes from there.
You mean 70 to 90, not to spoil any coffee, or do you think there is a kind of a taste, or do you like the taste better from a 60 to 90 batch than a 100-gram batch?
Yeah, for me, I I can go back and forth with some coffees. I can find it that it is really good. It all depends on thermal mass. Every coffee has a different shape, size, and everything. But for the classic competition style that everybody uses is typically Geshes or Sudan Rumes that are like typically like the same size. And I find that it's really good between 70, 80, 90 grams within there. Like good example is for June, we were using 80-gram batch sizes to really articulate that coffee really well. But as well, it's a cool way because you can conserve a lot instead of wasting that additional 20 grams. You can really get to know your coffee a little bit better and have smaller batch sizes. But for consistency's sake, I'd be really looking to do like the same batch size when you do look to compete. So don't go from a 50 up to a 80 and then down to a 70. Once you have it like locked in, just continue that same approach because you can still get such amazing results off a 50-gram batch size as well.
Thanks a lot. One more technical question, and then I have some questions for June as well. But that was, do you see it actually in the log when first crack has happened if people are not marking it? Do you see somehow in the profile? Or?
Yeah, this is like getting a little bit more technical, but you can start to look at the power curve. There's a black power curve that's called power kilowatts, and you're actually able to see subtle changes within it. But as well, if you match that to the desired rate of rise that's actually happening at the bottom, you're going to see that as moisture releases, the machine will start to automatically react, and you'll see a slight dip within it. Don't look at every slight dip, but you'll see a consistency between those two. And if anybody sends me like a log, I can almost guarantee that I can find where first crack is within like an 8-second range. That's something that we're looking forward to with the link, is we're going to create like an automatic first crack detector within it, because there is like an algorithm base that you're able to do it, but I'm just trying to establish so much data to be able to do it. But those are like the 2 key points if I'm looking back at a log and trying to figure out where the coffee is cracking, is looking at the power kilowatts and also looking at the rate of rise, because it should dip quite a bit. And when I say dip, you're talking like 2 to 3 grams. I mean 2 to 3 degrees at a time.
Thanks a lot. And then maybe coming back more then to the competition, because I think quite some people here are interested in participating on a Brewers Cup or any other competition. And maybe, June, I don't know, from your experience, you already talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but are there some learnings or advices that you had from your competition experience that you can share with people if they want to start this venture and maybe for the first time go to a national competition, National Brewers Cup, some learnings or things that you can recommend people?
Sure. Well, I'll break it down to like just get started. You can think a lot about it, but the best way to start is to actually get started, and you don't need to start with like a national championship. There are several smaller competitions that you can apply for or like participate in to get like first few experiences, how it's like to be on stage, how it's like to actually also get feedback from people about the work that you've been doing, and really just there's so much that you can learn, and always stay curious and choose curiosity, because coming back to the question about the resting time, like this is also part of the fun part of getting to know a coffee. You know, the competition, of course, you can have a coffee that is always performing well, but for me, the fun part is also to have like the challenge and to really get to know a coffee, and to really just discover new things and be open for new ideas, and don't feel ashamed to ask. Like for a pretty long time, I felt like, yeah, but if I ask questions, people will think I didn't know that, and I'm a kind of stupid or not as professional as they thought I'd be. But once you really like leave that behind you and are not afraid to ask questions, you get to know so many great people. You will exchange with so many great people and get to know so much more. And yeah, I think Jerome also mentioned it. It's always good to have one person that you can just throw crazy ideas to back and forth. I mean, when I told Janine that I was up to use like a milk frother to aerate my coffee, she was like, "This is crazy, but yeah, just try it. Like, don't be ashamed of anything. Just try it. Have fun. Stay curious, and sign up for it." I mean, I saw also here. So he's like the best example. We met in Nicaragua, and we've been sitting in the back of a truck driving through the jungle. And I told him about my idea that I will participate in the Brewers Cup and that I'm looking for coffee. And he was super interested, like, oh, what's that kind of competition? And then a year later, he signed up for, and like this year, he just placed second, also with coffee from Nicaragua. So this was like actually the best case scenario that could have happened in the last nationals. Like we both had the same finca, we both met there, and also it's not working with coffee. So you don't have to be like a coffee professional in order to be part of the coffee community. So yeah, I just encourage everyone to, if you're into it, try it out, get started. Just brew it.
Yeah. You were just talking a little bit about technique, and actually I realized we haven't been really talking about technique in this session at all. And I remember you had some really special filters like these Sivaristi filters that I haven't seen before. Can you maybe just tell a little bit about the technique and why you've chosen this particular technique? What is the benefit of it? Or yeah.
So I got to know the lovely guys from Zebarist, and they've shown me their new paper filters, which are the dual chamber paper filters. So like the name suggests, it is a filter that not has one brew chamber but two. It has like a sort of border in the middle, and this opens like so much, like a whole bunch of new opportunities to approach your brew. And I think ultimately most people would use both chambers to blend coffees or play around with different grind sizes, different waters, or whatsoever. And we've came to the idea that we have one main brew, which is nice, elegant, and delightful, but we wanted to spice it up a little, like booster for the flavors, because a lot of the most desirable flavors are extracted in the very early stages during a brew, but they often kind of get overpowered or overshadowed by all of the other things that you extract later, that you actually need to have a balanced brew. So the idea was to have one major main brew in one chamber, and then adding a second smaller brew in the other chamber after that, which is basically just extracting the first stage with the most desirable and fruity flavors, and therefore the coffee became super juicy, had a rich cherry note, and yeah, it's a very nice technique for coffees to, like I said, be a bit more juicy. If you have, like last week, I had a coffee from Burundi, a washed coffee, and it said blackberry and oolong tea on flavor description. And when I had it as a regular brew, it highlighted more of that tea-ish character. And when using the double chamber booster approach, it really had that blackberry kind of note. So it's a good approach to spice it up a bit, to highlight the acidity and to make it more juicy.
Oh, thanks a lot. And maybe Jerome, when coming to this question that asks June about any recommendations that you would give to people that are participating in competition, because you've also been working with a lot of people. Do you have something that you would add?
Yeah, honestly, like how she just said it, just get started. Try and get involved with like a lot of community competitions. I think one of the most fun internationally recognized competitions right now is AeroPress. AeroPress is something that you can easily get on. It's like a 30-40 euro brewer that to this day my mom still uses for her morning breakfast as an example. But just get involved a little bit, start to open up your eyes a little bit more. There's so many chat forums and there's so many social media platforms now that where you can get connected with producers and you're able to see like what they're doing and you can inquire more. There's a lot more engagement to what it used to be from back in the day. So I would 100% just make the plunge and figure out the best people to surround yourself with. Someone that can really help you mentally and emotionally with it, because it is such a roller coaster effect. You're going to have some of the worst days ever, contemplating everything, wanting to change everything, change your concept because you don't believe in yourself. And then the other days where you're just going to be on such highs. But definitely get someone who's really equipped with you palette-wise, that you can just bounce ideas back and forth of how these adjustments are actually correlating to the final cup. So always having two people around you, make the jump, understand all the rules, like really have a thorough look through with the score sheet. There's so many people that have been disqualified in the past just not reading over the simple score sheet. So just really go through that and make the plunge, watch others. There's so much videos out there on YouTube where you're actually able to see past competitors and why they've been successful, and you can start to incorporate them through your own way. I see many competitors that are actually in this chat, so that's basically like the best way that I'd go about it, is use the peers and the community around you to really get the best out of yourself.
Hey, perfect. Thanks so much, Jerome and June.
Pleasure.
I hope this encourages a lot of you to then participate in competitions. For those of you who are already in competitions, make sure that you have a look at the Nucleus program, where you can get some support for the competitions. I don't know, I saw that Jordan is also here, so maybe one of you could also put a link in the chat where people can find more information, or otherwise I think it's just easy to contact the Nucleus team on their website or on social media or wherever. So they're super helpful and very, very easy to reach. And yeah. Now, for anybody else that is here that will compete in Jakarta, as well as especially then, of course, for June and Jerome as a team, I just wish you all the best for Jakarta. And I thank you so much for sharing everything, sharing all your tips and tricks and insights and stories. And it was so fantastic to have you here. So thanks a lot, June, and thanks a lot for Jerome, who has been waking up so early in Australia and coming to this session. And yeah, thanks so much, and all the best wishes to you.
Thank you so
Absolute
much
pleasure
for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Inga, for hosting this and getting everyone connected. It's awesome to be able to share a little bit about both of us and understand the process, and hopefully we inspire, even if it's just one person out of this. That will excite me so much if they make the plunge into the competition world and start to go down the rabbit hole of roasting and brewing and bring something new and exciting to the coffee world.
I hope this video was fun to watch and you learned a lot. If you want to participate in one of the next webinars, then make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. You find the link down in the description. And if you want to know more about the Link Roaster, then come to our website. You find the link here or down in the description, or always come back to me. You'll find my contact on roasterevels.com.